So my number two is Breathless from 1960. This is a film directed by Jean-Luc Godard, starring Jean-Paul Belmondo and Gene Seberg. The IMDb plot summary: a small-time thief steals a car and impulsively murders a motorcycle policeman. Wanted by the authorities, he reunites with a hip American journalist student and attempts to persuade her to run away with him to Italy. So this is a film that I guess maybe to go back to the tree and branch analogy was the movie that got me into French New Wave cinema, which is a movement and a bunch of filmmakers I grew to really like after having this film kind of lit that fuse. Because a lot of filmmakers that I really loved growing up and still do, Tarantino, Wes Anderson, Scorsese, were very much heavily influenced by this movement out of France. So it was a way for me to kind of go back and see what influenced them. So this was a film that I watched on DVD from Netflix. So I graduated college, and then for about 6 months I didn't find a job. So it was a period of time when I just used and abused the Netflix DVD by mail service, where I upped it to like 5 discs at a time, and I would just sort of pick something I wanted to do and just would like get all the films and really like expanded my film knowledge during that time. And this was not the first like French New Wave film that I saw. Like when I was at film school and we saw Contempt and 400 Blows, two films like I just wasn't ready for, I think at the time. I remember not liking either of them when I first saw them. But I kind of did some reading. Okay, what's like the first film to start with? And if you want to get into the French New Wave, because I'm like, you know what? I have all this time. Let me just kind of try this, get into it again, or at least just learn these films because my favorite filmmakers were, always talking about these filmmakers. So I got this one and immediately it just totally blew me away. And I was like, okay, I got to watch all the rest of these French New Wave films. So this film for me, like, I don't know. It's like you watching this, and even still to this day, when I rewatch it for this podcast, because I watch it every couple years too. It's like it feels so fresh and new, and just like lightning in a bottle thing. That's even now more than 50 years later, just still hits you when you watch it. Just right from the opening, it's they're the main character who's Michel. I think the first even line of dialogue is like, "I'm an asshole." He just comes out and says it, and he's got this cool kind of like pose where the hat is sort of like pushed over his eyes. He's got the cigarette in his mouth, like it's black and white, like some really cool French guy. And I'm like, whoa, this is like the coolest thing I've ever seen. And then in the first 10 minutes, like they say in the plot summary, he steals a car. And the way that they edit this thing together, like when he's driving down the French countryside, there's these fast cuts. And again, at the time, this is really revolutionary, but it still felt to me watching this on DVD in like 2004. It felt still just as fresh and new as it must have when it premiered in cinemas. He breaks the fourth wall in that opening like 5 minutes. He talks to the audience and says something like screw you guys. He's like dissing the audience. And then there's a sequence when he shoots the police officer, like they say. And they're these very odd, like, edits and cuts where, like, it zooms in on the gun. And then you, like, quickly sort of, the police officer's kind of dead. You don't really even know what happened. And then all of a sudden he's, like, running down this field. Like, it's weird. It feels like a student film in a way. But I think that's only because this whole film to me feels like a filmmaker who, like, doesn't know I mean, this is not true, but this is what it felt like watching this film. Like a filmmaker who knows nothing about the art of film, so he doesn't know what the rules are and what he's supposed to do. He just does what he wants to do. Much like this character in the film, the main character too. Like he just kind of goes around blasé. Okay, I'm just gonna be doing whatever I want to do. And that freshness and uniqueness comes across in this film to me. Like maybe too, like I put Kane on my list last time I talked about it. And to me, like to make an analogy, that film was like inventing how cinema would be made. Like, maybe to use I don't know if this analogy holds up as I'm thinking about it, but in like a music sense, like that film's like the Beatles. Like they invented and crystallized so much. And then Breathless is like a punk rock band who like just rips it all down and just pretends like, I've sawed what you guys did before. We're just going to do something fresh and cool and hip. And it feels like that. Like this movie is like electric. Like I just can't express how this movie makes me feel every time I watch it. It's so just cool. And even all the way down to the very ending of the film, the last shot is like the female character stares like right at the audience and like delivers her line almost like she's asked like a question and she's like delivering it to you as the audience, and just sort of like you're taken aback by it. because you're not used to, it's not like the whole movie they break the fourth wall. There's these two moments when they talk to the audience, or maybe even this one, it's not talk to the audience. I don't know what Godard had in mind, but it just was like, whoa, like they end on such a note like that too. So this film for me, like, still feels electric, still feels punk. And it brought me down this whole journey of discovering all these other films that, frankly, you know, I like better, like that some Truffaut films. I mean, he's now my favorite French New Wave filmmaker. Godard, there's some other films I like of his, but Truffaut, like, I just grew to love. But it wasn't until this film that like electrified that journey for me. And the movie still feels like this today. I mean, it's one of the greatest films. It's awesome. I love this film.
Yeah. First of all, we have to mention that Godard passed away this year. So,
oh yeah, you're right. Okay,
what a
yeah,
huge legacy.
Oh my God,
yeah,
totally.
Honestly, if you had not put this on your list, I would have, because this is my entry into French New Wave as well. I probably read the same article, you know, where to start.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what? Yeah, where do I start? Right.
Right. And then also a Netflix DVD way back when. Yeah, everything you said, like, there is just no artifice at all. But yet it's not a movie that was just like, that feels like it's cobbled up and it's messy, but it's purposefully messy. Because there's a lot of like mess that's been made out there, which just, I've mentioned this before, can be very unsettling in a bad way, to the point that I'm bored.
Right.
You know, you're riveted because it's just so purposeful. But at the same time, it has no rules, and it almost has this feeling of, wait, can you do that? Can you do that?
Right.
You know, that's what I remember. And I still felt it watching it again. But the first time I watched it, that's how I felt. And and then to your point of kind of influencing other directors, like, you see that across the movie and all the great people that you mentioned. You can sort of, I'm sure somebody has written an article on this, of how you can trace, you know, the signature styles of all these auteurs that we revere and admire, and connect it back to frames in this movie. I'm sure somebody has done that. You can see it. It's so amazing, but yet it's so light.
Yes.
That's the genius of it. It's not pretentious at all. It just feels like it was just cobbled up together. So yeah, I don't know. This movie is kind of amazing. Great performances as well. It's a vibe movie, like we were talking about Nashville as well.
Oh, totally.
But
yes, yeah.
I think this is more rooted in character and who these people are, while it is also a vibe movie, while it is also an indictment on the audience, and you're kind of part of it all as well.
Yeah.
So amazing. What can I say?
Yeah, no, if anyone hasn't seen this film, I mean, it worked for both of us. So if you're not into French New Wave, try Breathless, and, you know, maybe it'll get you just as excited as it did us about that entire, you know, 1960s to early 70s movement, with just so many great films. I mean, this film doesn't like encapsulate that whole movement, but it, you know, kickstarted the journey for both of us, which is kind of cool that you had the same. Again, we probably stumbled across the same article. We're like, okay, start here. I mean, it's such an academic exercise. At least I treated it as that, of like, okay, well, I love this. Like, what else do I get? But it was a fun journey to go down. And you know, if I hadn't, you know, again, the other two films I watched that from this movement, I was like, I don't know, I was ready for them, I guess, or maybe the film school should have showed this. I don't know, instead of Contempt. But cool.
Yeah, no, there's still, like, I think Belle du Jour was the next one that I watched, which also has stayed with me since. But yeah, so many people, Truffaut, Agnes Varda, like, it's such a amazing group of people. So yeah, lots more to watch.
Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.